It was a quiet morning at Alex's property, the kind of serene calm that made the world feel far away, where the soft rustle of leaves in the wind was the only sound, and the sun warmed the earth just enough to coax the flowers into full bloom. Alex had always cherished this solitude. The sprawling green lawn, the flower beds bursting with color, the old oak tree by the fence. It was the perfect escape from the chaos of city life. Everything was in place, or so Alex thought. As they sipped their coffee on the porch, enjoying the familiar tranquility, a sudden knock on the door shattered the stillness. It wasn't the usual kind of visitor, a neighbor stopping by for a quick chat, or the postman with a letter. No, this was a knock with purpose. Alex set the mug down slowly, feeling a sense of unease rise in their chest. Who could it be? Opening the door, Alex came face to face with Linda. She was standing there, arms crossed, wearing the smug expression that had earned her the nickname Karen around the neighborhood. Linda, the president of the local HOA, was notorious for her overbearing attitude and self-appointed role as the enforcer of the neighborhood's rules, most of which seemed to change on a whim. "Alex, we need to talk," Linda said, her voice carrying the weight of someone who thought they already had the upper hand. She wasn't here for a friendly chat. That much was clear. "About what?" Alex replied, trying to mask the discomfort growing in their stomach. Something felt off about this encounter. Without any pleasantries, Linda reached into her bag and pulled out a thick folder, her lips curling into a thin smile. She opened it with deliberate slowness, revealing a document marked with bold letters. HOA property claim. The words felt heavy in the air, and a sudden chill ran down Alex's spine. "I've been reviewing the land records," Linda continued, her tone dripping with authority. "And according to the latest survey, part of your land is actually HOA property, specifically the southern boundary of your property. That means the HOA has full rights to it." Alex blinked, confused. "What? That doesn't make any sense. I've owned this land for years, and my deeds." Linda cut them off, holding up a hand as if to silence them. "I'm not here to discuss deeds. I'm here to inform you that we're officially claiming it. You'll need to either sell that portion to the HOA or allow us to develop it. I'm sure you've seen the plans for the new park that will be built in this area." Alex's heart raced. A park? This was absurd. They had spent months planning the garden that now stretched along that part of the property, and the idea of it being bulldozed for some new project felt wrong on every level. "I think you're mistaken, Linda," Alex said, trying to keep their voice steady. "I've checked all the legal papers when I bought this place. No part of my land is under HOA jurisdiction." Linda's eyes narrowed, and for a split second, her calm demeanor faltered. It was quick. Too quick to be noticeable to anyone else, but Alex caught it. Something was off. She was acting like she knew something Alex didn't, something that made her so sure. "Perhaps you should check again," Linda replied coolly, her smile returning, though it was far more calculating now. "But don't take too long. The HOA's lawyers are already involved, and the matter will be settled, one way or another." And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving Alex standing in the doorway, staring at the document in disbelief. How could this be happening? As Linda's figure receded into the distance, Alex's thoughts raced. The HOA had no right to claim any part of their property. But why was Linda so confident? What did she know that Alex didn't? The sense of unease from earlier had now transformed into full-blown suspicion. Something wasn't adding up. And deep down, Alex had a gut feeling that this was only the beginning of something much bigger. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The knock on the door, Linda's calm demeanor, and the way she seemed so sure of herself. It all felt off. As the day stretched into evening, Alex's mind couldn't quiet the growing knot of unease in their stomach. They had never been one to back down easily. But this felt different. How could Linda just claim part of my land? The question bounced around in their head like an echo, refusing to fade. They tried to distract themselves with work around the property, trimming the hedges, tending to the garden. But every time they looked out toward the southern edge of the yard, the memory of Linda's words crept back into their thoughts. The HOA has full rights to it. Those words had replayed in Alex's mind 1,000 times, and they couldn't help but feel the weight of them. As night fell, Alex sat at their kitchen table, staring at the documents Linda had left behind. The paper felt cold in their hands, as though it carried some hidden power, something dangerous. They'd glanced over the official-looking paperwork when Linda handed it to them, but in the chaos of the moment, it hadn't registered. Now, alone in the quiet of their home, Alex spread the papers out on the table and began to read them more carefully. The document was filled with technical jargon, maps, and coordinates that seemed to confirm Linda's claim. But something about it didn't sit right. The boundary she outlined didn't match anything Alex had ever seen on their own property deeds. In fact, the boundary she cited wasn't even close to where the survey markers had been placed. Alex's heart began to race. Was this really a mistake? Or was Linda hiding something? Suddenly, a thought hit Alex like a bolt of lightning. What if Linda wasn't just mistaken? What if this was all part of a plan? The more Alex thought about it, the more the pieces started to fit together in a way that made their skin crawl. In a panic, Alex grabbed their phone and started searching for old property records. They scrolled through the online database, hunting for anything that might confirm what Linda had said or prove it wrong. Hours passed, and still there was no sign of the disputed land in the HOA's jurisdiction. But then, buried deep in the search results, Alex stumbled upon something peculiar, an old land survey that didn't quite add up. The survey, dated a few years ago, marked a boundary that did match the one Linda had described. But what caught Alex's attention was the name at the bottom of the document. It was Linda's. What the hell? Alex's pulse quickened. Linda had been involved with the land surveying company that had marked this boundary years ago. The revelation was a bombshell. Was this all some kind of scheme to claim the property for herself? But why? The more Alex thought about it, the less it made sense. Was she trying to sell it to developers? Alex's mind raced with possibilities, but something in the back of their mind whispered that there was more to this than just a simple land grab. What if Linda was hiding that deeper motive, something more sinister? A sudden knock on the door startled Alex, breaking their train of thought. Their hearts skipped a beat. Could it be Linda again? Or someone else from the HOA? They slowly stood up, the hairs on the back of their necks standing on end. The house felt eerily silent as they approached the door. With trembling hands, Alex opened it. Standing on the other side wasn't Linda. It was a neighbor, Matt, holding a manila envelope. "Alex," he said, his voice low, almost apologetic. "You need to see this." Alex's mind raced as they opened the door to Matt, their neighbor. He was standing there, holding a manila envelope with a grim expression, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. Alex's heart thudded in their chest, the strange sense of dread growing stronger. What could Matt possibly have to show them? The envelope seemed to pulse with ominous energy, its presence making Alex feel like they were standing on the edge of something dangerous. I don't know if you're going to like what's in here," Matt said quietly, his voice laced with hesitation. "But I think you need to see it." Matt handed over the envelope, his fingers trembling ever so slightly. Alex took it, suddenly aware of how heavy it felt in their hands, as though it contained more than just paper. With a sharp exhale, Alex ripped it open and pulled out a set of documents, their eyes quickly scanning the first sheet. It was a copy of an old land survey, one that had been done years before Alex moved in. "What is this?" Alex asked, their voice trembling despite their attempt at calmness. Matt didn't answer immediately, but instead pointed to the bottom of the document. "Look at the signature. That's Linda's name, right?" Alex's eyes zeroed in on the signature, and sure enough, it was Linda's, bold and unmistakable. But that wasn't the most shocking part. The survey outlined boundaries that matched the disputed land claim Linda had presented earlier, and the date on the document was years old. But there was something even more unsettling. This survey wasn't meant for the HOA, Matt continued. It was a private transaction. Alex's pulse quickened. Private transaction. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. Linda hadn't just made an error in her claim. She had been directly involved in marking the land boundaries. But the more they stared at the document, the more questions flooded their mind. Why was Linda involved in this survey? And what was her true motive? Matt's voice cut through the confusion. There's more. I went through some old records. I found that Linda was working with a land development firm at the time. They were looking at properties just like yours. Alex's stomach sank. A development firm. That was the final piece of the puzzle. Linda had been trying to acquire land for her own financial gain, and Alex's property was at the top of her list. The idea that Linda had been manipulating the HOA to further her own plans, twisting the truth to her advantage, was infuriating. But there was still something that didn't sit right with Alex. Linda wasn't just making a claim on the land out of greed. There had to be something more. What exactly are you saying? Alex asked, their voice now sharp, feeling the weight of the conspiracy coming into focus. I think Linda was trying to buy your land, or force you to sell it, Matt replied, his tone low. But I don't think it was just about the land itself. There's something bigger here. I found documents about the development company, and they've been looking at other properties in the area too. I think they've been working with the HOA. Alex's thoughts whirled. The pieces were all starting to fit together, but there was still one nagging question. Why had Linda gone to such extremes? Why had she gone to the lengths of manipulating the HOA, fabricating claims, and potentially even blackmailing Alex into giving up the land? Just as Alex began to open their mouth to ask Matt more questions, their phone rang, interrupting the conversation. Alex glanced at the screen, feeling their hearts skip a beat. It was their lawyer. Matt, Alex whispered urgently. I have to take this. The line clicked, and Alex quickly answered. Hello. The voice on the other end was calm but urgent. Alex, we need to talk. There's something about the HOA's recent land survey that you need to hear. You won't believe who's involved. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Alex's heart pounded as the weight of the call set in. It seemed that their investigation had just taken a darker turn. Alex's pulse raced as they ended the call with their lawyer. The words lingered in their mind, repeating over and over. You won't believe who's involved. The message had been clear, but it had also raised more questions than answers. Who else could be involved in this twisted land grab? What was the HOA hiding? And how deep did this rabbit hole go? Matt, you need to leave now, Alex said, trying to keep their voice steady. I need to get to the bottom of this right now. Matt nodded, his face pale with the weight of what he had just shared. I'll be around if you need anything, he said quietly before turning to leave. But before he disappeared, he shot Alex a concerned look. Be careful, all right? Alex didn't reply. They didn't have time for anything more than a quick nod. As soon as Matt was gone, Alex paced the living room, their mind racing. They had to act fast. The lawyer's call had only heightened the urgency. They needed answers. And more than that, they needed to confront Linda. Whatever game she was playing, it was getting far too dangerous. The evening sun was setting, casting long shadows across the yard as Alex made their way to the HOA meeting. The place felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in around them. They could already hear the buzz of murmurs inside the building, the usual mix of neighborhood gossip and whispered complaints. But tonight was different. Tonight, the stakes were higher. Tonight, Alex was walking in with the truth. As Alex entered the room, all eyes turned toward them. Linda, sitting at the front, gave them a cold, calculating smile. Her gaze was sharp, like a predator sizing up its prey. She had prepared for this moment. The confident air about her made Alex's skin crawl. But Alex wasn't about to back down. The room settled into an uneasy silence. The HOA board members looked on, clearly anticipating the clash. Alex stood at the front, holding the folder of documents. Everything they had discovered about Linda's involvement in the land survey, the connection to the development firm, and the shady dealings that had been happening under their noses. "I'm here to set the record straight," Alex began, their voice steady but firm, cutting through the tension in the room. "Linda doesn't own any part of my property. I've got the proof right here." A murmur spread through the room as Alex laid the documents on the table, one by one, revealing the full extent of Linda's manipulation. The survey records, the signatures, the connection to the land development firm. It was all laid out. There was no denying it. Linda's face turned pale, her confident smile replaced with a flicker of panic. "You can't just," Linda began, her voice shaking, but Alex held up a hand, silencing her. "I'm not finished," Alex said, their voice rising with the intensity of the moment. "You've been running a scam, trying to force me to sell my land to the HOA so you could turn it over to developers. You've been using your position to push your own agenda, and I'm done letting you do that." Linda's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a thin line. "You're making a huge mistake, Alex," she said, her voice low and venomous. "You don't know who you're messing with." Alex stood their ground, refusing to back down. "Oh, I know exactly who I'm messing with. You've been playing everyone in this neighborhood, using the HOA to get what you want, and I'm not going to let you do it anymore." The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Some looked uncomfortable, clearly torn by the confrontation, while others seemed to be watching Linda, as if waiting for her next move. Linda, her composure slipping, stood up abruptly. "This isn't over," she spat, her voice dripping with fury. "I'll make sure you regret this." But Alex didn't flinch. They had the evidence. They had the truth. And they weren't going to let Linda intimidate them any longer. Before anyone could react, Alex turned and made their way toward the exit, the sound of Linda's seething anger following them like a dark shadow. But as they stepped out of the meeting hall, a sudden realization hit them like a freight train. This wasn't just about the land. There was something bigger at play, something Alex hadn't fully understood yet. What if Linda's threats weren't just empty words? What if she had even more power than Alex realized? They'd only scratched the surface of this twisted conspiracy, and the danger was far from over. The evening air was thick with tension as Alex walked away from the HOA meeting. Their heart was still pounding from the confrontation, adrenaline coursing through their veins. The truth had come out. Linda's manipulation had been exposed. But as Alex stepped into the cool night, a creeping sense of dread settled over them. What now? The victory felt hollow. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. Linda was dangerous, and Alex had only seen a fraction of what she was capable of. The board members may have been hesitant to side with her, but they were still part of the HOA. And with Linda's influence, anything could happen. As Alex walked back home, the familiar streets seemed different, darker somehow. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, as if the night itself were conspiring against them. A chill ran down Alex's spine, the weight of the situation pressing harder with every step. They couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Arriving home, Alex quickly locked the door behind them, their mind racing. The phone call with their lawyer earlier had unsettled them, but they couldn't quite place why. The lawyer had been cryptic, talking about how Linda's connections went deeper than they thought. They had tried to downplay it, but there was a sense of urgency in the lawyer's voice that had stuck with Alex. Who else is involved? They didn't have time to dwell on the question for long. A sharp knock at the door shattered the silence. Alex froze, heart skipping a beat. It was too late for a casual visit, and the thought of it being Linda again made their stomach turn. But when they opened the door, they were met by someone unexpected. Detective Harris. The detective's serious expression immediately put Alex on edge. "I need to speak with you, Alex," Harris said, stepping forward before Alex could respond. "May I come in?" Alex hesitated, but curiosity and concern won out. "Sure," they said, stepping aside to allow Harris into the house. "What's this about?" Harris wasted no time, his tone blunt. "We've been investigating a string of property fraud cases in this area. Linda," he said, pausing for emphasis, "has been under suspicion for a while now." Alex's blood ran cold. Fraud. Everything was starting to click. Linda's attempts to take control of their property weren't just about land or money. There was something more sinister going on here. Harris continued, his voice grim. "She's been using her position in the HOA to push for land acquisitions under false pretenses, and we've recently uncovered evidence that she's been involved in a much larger operation, one that goes all the way up to some powerful figures in the real estate world, people who will stop at nothing to get what they want." Alex's mind reeled. Linda was involved in something much bigger than they'd ever imagined. A real estate syndicate. Powerful people. "I came to warn you, Alex," Harris said, his eyes locking onto theirs. "You're not safe. Linda will try to retaliate, and she won't stop. You've crossed a line, and now she knows that you know what's going on. This is bigger than just you now. If she can't intimidate you into backing down, she'll find another way." Alex's stomach dropped as the weight of the situation settled in. "What do I do?" they asked, their voice barely above a whisper. Harris glanced over his shoulder, ensuring the door was still closed. "Stay vigilant. Keep your distance from her. And if anything unusual happens, anything, call me immediately. This goes far beyond a simple land dispute now. There are forces at play that could ruin you." Before Alex could respond, the detective turned to leave, but not before leaving one final chilling piece of advice. Trust no one. As the door clicked shut behind Harris, Alex stood frozen, the words echoing in their mind. Trust no one. A cold shiver ran down their spine. The world outside felt suddenly hostile, full of shadows that hid hidden dangers. What had they stumbled into? Was Linda truly behind this vast network of corruption? And if so, what would she do now that Alex had exposed her? The night felt heavier now, the weight of the unknown pressing on Alex's shoulders. One thing was certain. The stakes had just gotten much higher. Alex sat in the silence of their living room, the detective's chilling warning echoing in their mind. Trust no one. The words were still fresh, sinking deep into the pit of their stomach. The reality of the situation had shifted, and suddenly everything felt much more dangerous. Linda wasn't just an overzealous HOA member. She was part of a dark, sprawling network of corruption that could destroy everything Alex had worked for. The weight of the night pressed down on Alex as they sat there, staring at the phone on the table. The lawyer's call, the mysterious land records, and now the detective's warnings. Nothing made sense anymore. What have I gotten myself into? The thought of contacting the police seemed futile. Detective Harris was clear. They had a much bigger stake in this than the local authorities could handle. Alex needed to take matters into their own hands. But what did that even mean? The walls felt like they were closing in, and every shadow outside their window seemed to stretch longer than the last. Was Linda watching? Was someone else waiting for the right moment to strike? Suddenly, the phone buzzed, jolting Alex from their spiraling thoughts. It was an unknown number, but something in Alex's gut told them it was important. They picked up the phone, heart racing. "Hello." A familiar voice answered, low and tight with urgency. "Alex, it's Matt. You need to get out of there. Now." Alex's heart skipped a beat. "What's going on? What's happened?" "I can't say much over the phone," Matt whispered, his voice strained. "But I've been digging into Linda's connections further. She's not working alone. There's a guy, a major player in real estate, who's been funding everything. I've got his name, but it's not just him. There's a whole group, and they've been watching you." Alex's blood turned to ice. "Watching me? Why?" "Because you've become a problem for them," Matt replied, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. If you don't leave now, things could get a lot worse. I've got some info on their next move, but I can't help you if you stay put. They'll be here soon. You don't have much time." Alex's mind raced, the pieces finally beginning to fall into place. The mysterious figures behind Linda were real, and they were dangerous. And now, they were aware that Alex knew too much. "Matt." Alex breathed, trying to stay calm. "What do I do?" "Pack your things and leave. Head to the old cabin in the woods. It's isolated, and it's the only place I can guarantee you'll be safe for now." His voice was frantic now, the urgency palpable. "I'll meet you there in an hour. Don't waste time." Alex didn't hesitate. Without another word, they grabbed the essentials, documents, phone, a small bag, and bolted out of the house. The feeling of leaving it behind, of being watched, made Alex's stomach churn. Every step felt like a countdown, a race against whatever was coming for them. As Alex hurried to the car, the world outside felt unnervingly quiet, the air thick with the sensation that something was just out of sight, waiting. The streets looked empty, but it didn't feel like they were alone. The lights of the neighborhood seemed too far away, too dim, and Alex couldn't shake the feeling that every passing car, every pedestrian, was watching them. The cabin wasn't far, an old forgotten relic tucked away in the woods, but the journey there felt endless, the oppressive silence only broken by the pounding of Alex's heart. Who else is involved in this? Who were these people Matt was talking about? The questions piled up, but there was no time to answer them. The cabin was their only shot at survival, at least for now. As Alex finally pulled up to the cabin, the creaking of the old wooden structure was the only sound that greeted them. The door to the small, secluded hideaway was ajar, just as Matt had said it would be. They rushed inside, locking the door behind them. The air was thick with dust, the room dark and cold. It wasn't much, but it was a safe haven. For now. Minutes passed, and every tick of the clock sounded louder in the stillness. Then the sudden crunch of gravel outside broke the silence. Footsteps. They weren't alone. Alex's breath hitched. It wasn't Matt. It couldn't be. They crept to the window, the panic rising in their chest as they peered through the thick curtains. Through the darkness, they could see shadowy figures, 2, maybe 3, standing near the edge of the property. No way. They found me. Alex's pulse thundered in their ears as they sank back, heart hammering against their ribs. They'd been found. The game had changed, and the stakes were higher than ever. Alex crouched low by the window, their breath shallow and quick, the shadows outside looming like predators closing in. The figures in the distance hadn't moved, but they were unmistakably watching. Who were they? Were they sent by Linda? Or was it someone more dangerous? Alex's pulse hammered in their chest, and the world felt like it had shrunk to a single unbearable moment. Every creak of the floorboards inside the cabin seemed deafening. The air was thick with the stifling pressure of uncertainty, each passing second bringing them closer to something they didn't fully understand. The cabin, once a place of retreat, now felt like a cage, a trap set by forces far beyond their control. They needed to stay calm. Matt would be here soon. But something gnawed at Alex's gut. Why hadn't Matt arrived yet? It had been over an hour. If these people were still out there, waiting for them, it meant Matt was either delayed or worse. He was never coming. Alex's thoughts raced, but they couldn't let panic take hold. The small bag beside them, containing their most important documents and a few personal items, was all they had left. Their mind flicked back to the conversation with the detective. Stay vigilant. Trust no one. The words rang in their ears like a warning. Suddenly, the sound of gravel crunching underfoot shattered the silence outside. It was closer now, right outside the cabin. Alex's breath caught, and their instincts kicked in. They crouched lower, crawling toward the back of the room, away from the window. They couldn't be seen. Not yet. There were at least 2 figures outside now, Their silhouettes were barely visible through the thick trees, but Alex could see the outline of someone standing close to the cabin, their posture still, waiting. Waiting for what? For someone to make a move, to let their guard down. Stay calm, stay calm. The mantra repeated in Alex's mind. And then, a sharp knock at the door sent a jolt of fear straight through Alex's spine. It was quick, sharp, and deliberate. The kind of knock that sent a message, a challenge. It wasn't Matt. Alex remained perfectly still, not daring to make a sound. Seconds stretched into eternity. They could hear the muffled voices outside, low and indistinct, but there was something in the cadence of their speech that made Alex's stomach churn. It wasn't just intimidation. There was a coldness to their tone, something far more calculated, more sinister. Another knock, louder this time. Alex, a voice called, deep and steady. It was unfamiliar, but it carried an authority that was unmistakable. The voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, like a snake ready to strike. We know you're in there. It's time to stop running. Alex's heart skipped a beat. They were surrounded. The door handle rattled as if testing its strength. Suddenly, Alex's phone buzzed in their pocket, the sharp sound cutting through the tension. A text from Matt. Don't answer the door. I'm coming. But they're onto you. Stay hidden. Don't trust them. Alex's breath hitched. Don't trust them. It was too late for that. They had no choice but to confront whatever was happening outside. The walls of the cabin felt like they were closing in. The figures outside weren't just some random strangers. They knew exactly who Alex was, what they had uncovered. This was personal. A brief moment of silence. Then, a voice broke through the quiet again. This time, it was different, more familiar. Alex, the voice called, more insistent now. If you want to get out of this alive, I suggest you listen carefully. Open the door, and we'll talk. But don't make us force our way in. That would be unfortunate. Who was this? Alex's eyes flicked toward the phone again. Matt. The pounding on the door started again. But this time, the figures moved away. They weren't leaving. They were just taking a step back. Something clicked in Alex's mind. These people weren't just after the land. They wanted something else, something more valuable. And Linda wasn't just the figurehead. She was the key. The question was, what was it that they were after, and how far would they go to get it? The pounding on the door stopped abruptly, leaving an unsettling silence that swallowed the cabin whole. Alex's heart thudded in their chest as they pressed their ear to the door, straining to catch any hint of movement outside. The silence was too heavy. What were they waiting for? A soft rustle came from the corner of the cabin. Alex's phone buzzed again. It was another text from Matt. I'm close, but they know. They won't stop. Get ready. Trust no one. Trust nothing. Alex's mind raced. Trust no one. The phrase burned into their thoughts. But how could they move forward now? Who could they trust? If Matt was coming to help, why hadn't he already arrived? Could they even trust him anymore? Just as the thought crossed their mind, the door creaked open. Alex froze. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, but it was too late. Someone was already inside. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, with a cold, calculating gaze, stepped into the cabin. His presence filled the room, the air growing even more suffocating. He wasn't just another henchman. There was something about him that made Alex's stomach churn. Alex, the man said, his voice low and smooth, yet carrying an authority that made the floor beneath them seem to shake. It's time we talk. Alex took a step back, every nerve on high alert. Who are you? They tried to sound steady, but the tremor in their voice betrayed them. Does it matter? The man smirked, taking a slow step forward, his eyes narrowing in on Alex. What matters is that you've been a problem for a very long time. You've uncovered things you weren't supposed to. And now, we have a situation. Suddenly, a voice from the shadows interrupted him. That's enough, Jonathan. A chill ran down Alex's spine. That voice, it was all too familiar. Linda. From the darkness of the corner, Linda stepped forward, her expression cold, her lips curling into a smirk. You've been looking in all the wrong places, Alex. You never would have found the truth unless you'd kept pushing. Alex's heart dropped. She was part of this. Linda, what is this? What do you want from me? Linda tilted her head, her eyes calculating. What we want, Alex, is simple. Control. Power. You've made the mistake of thinking that this was about land. But this, she said, gesturing broadly around the cabin, is much bigger than that. You've become part of something far more dangerous than you realize. And now we have to clean up the mess you've made. Alex's mind raced. The pieces were falling into place, but they still didn't understand. What are you talking about? Linda's smile widened, almost predatory. You've uncovered the network, but you're only seeing part of it. Jonathan here, she gestured to the imposing figure beside her, works for the real power behind the scenes. The people who wanted you gone before you could figure it out. But now, it's too late. Alex took a step back, their mind whirling. What do you want from me? Linda's eyes darkened, and her smile faded. We want you to stop fighting. You've made your choice, and now there's no going back. The truth, Alex, is that people like you, people like us, we don't get to walk away from the mess we create. Ever. The words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. Every second, every move they had made to get to this point had only pushed them deeper into the spider's web. And now, they were cornered. There was no way out. A sudden noise outside broke the tense moment. The sound of an engine, a car. Alex's pulse quickened. Was it Matt?